It is often said that money doesn't make you happy, but what is clear is that a shortage or absence of money can make you unhappy. So in this video, we're going to be covering how much money you actually need to avoid this kind of unhappiness, and also the various nuances around human needs, financial security, and net worth. Failing to afford the basics can add high levels of unwanted stress on yourself and your family, and this desperation can lead to many negative side effects from rash decision making, gambling, and poor health. So how much money is actually enough? Well, a 2010 Princeton study by Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton found that emotional well-being increases with income up to around $75,000, beyond which additional income has a diminishing effect on your happiness. The study also distinguishes between emotional well-being and perceived life satisfaction, or your overall evaluation of life. So it's worth pointing out that this evaluation is based largely on the attainment of conventional goals. So someone who went to college, got married, and landed a decent job will more likely evaluate their life more highly, but the emotional well-being might not necessarily align with this. Emotional well-being reflects much more your individual daily emotional experience. What's also interesting is that in high-cost cities, earning more than $75,000 doesn't lead to an increase in happiness. This is likely due to the fact that $75,000 is enough to live on while allowing for emotionally rich and sociable experiences. So what about that fast car or the luxurious mansion? Surely having those gives you a higher quality life. Well, it turns out that these things provide short-term thrills, but very quickly, often between 1 month and 1 year, you end up right back where you started in perceived happiness. This is due to the concept called hedonic adaptation. This fancy term means that your mind is always trying to get back to a baseline level of happiness, which we'll say is 5 out of 10. This means that if you buy a fancy car, it might give you a temporary 8 or 9, but very quickly this fancy car becomes your new 5 out of 10. This might not sound like too much of a problem until you find yourself in a worse car. Then this downgrade feels like a 3 out of 10. It's for this reason that certain types of people with lots of money can appear snobby. Michelin-star dining or 5-star resorts becomes their default, so anything below this will seem like a step below. This of course doesn't excuse any antisocial or condescending behaviour, but it does at least explain some of the interactions. In practice though, what this means is that the less money you have, the more likely you are to enjoy monetary experiences, so this makes it a bit of a paradox. So now that we've established what is the financial threshold for happiness, the next thing that matters is what you tend to prioritise and spend it on. This brings us to the area of experiences versus material goods. A 20-year study conducted by Dr. Thomas Gilovich, a psychology professor at Cornell University, reached a profound conclusion when it comes to spending. Don't spend your money on things and instead focus on experiences that gives you rich memories. This is for 3 main reasons. 1. We get used to new possessions very quickly, as previously mentioned. 2. We keep raising the bar or shifting the goalposts. And 3, which we'll cover in more detail in a minute, the Joneses are always around the corner. Another aspect that seems to increase your happiness based on your spending is who you tend to spend it on. Much research has concluded that spending money on others can boost happiness much more than spending it on oneself. These 2 ideas, prioritizing memories and spending on others, when combined, paints a picture on what brings people the most joy. Solo experiences, while often meaningful, are usually far exceeded by joint and sociable ones. Going on holiday with friends and family often leaves you with memories and ideas that stay with you for the rest of your life. But how often do we recall with fondness material possessions of the past? The last point is that much of happiness and perceived wealth is not absolute, but rather relative to those around you. This is called social comparison theory, and known more commonly as keeping up with the Joneses when it comes to wealth. When it comes to social comparison, there are 2 options. Upward comparison, which is comparing yourself to those who are perceived to be better off, and downward comparison, which is the opposite. In many ways, it's in our nature to favour the former, even though it's more detrimental to our well-being and life satisfaction. In modern times, this is massively exacerbated by social media. The only way though to avoid this is to be aware of it and lean in towards gratitude, because the chances are, for everyone who you think is better off than you, there is someone worse off. In addition, the assumption that someone is better off is almost always overly simplistic. Maybe they are wealthier or more famous than you, We never truly know what life is like behind closed doors. The only way to live a happier life is to surround yourself with positive experiences and people who remind you that most of the best things don't require lavish spending. Money at the end of the day just gives you more freedom if you choose to spend it in a way that facilitates it. If you instead use it to signal status, you'll be forever caught in the endless cycle of keeping up with the Joneses.